Hello everyone, it's your host, your friend, your boy, Jet Black, the one and only, here with another exciting video. And in this video, we're going to be talking about Saturn Girl. We're going to be reading her official DC Universe Encyclopedia entry. We're not using Wikias, we're not using Wikipedias. This is straight from DC. So it's like an official guide to the character. We're going to be going over her introduction, her origin, her powers and abilities, her essential storylines and history, her team affiliations, and her appearances in other media. This is not just a reading of the article, this is also a commentary, so I'm going to be sharing my thoughts throughout. Also, I'll occasionally get interrupted because the music that I have playing in the background will occasionally have ads I have to click. Without further ado, let's hop right in and let's explore the character of Saturn Girl. Saturn Girl. The telepathic titan known as Saturn Girl, is one of the founding members of the Legion of Superheroes. Aliases: Imra, I'm gonna butcher this, Imra Ardeen Rons. First appearance, Adventure Comics number 247 in 1958. One of the three founding members of the Legion of Superheroes, young Imra Ardeen hails from the planet Titan, one of the moons of Saturn, and was one of her homeworld's most powerful telepathic minds. Imra left Titan at a young age to join the Science Police, but on the way to Earth, she and two other superpowered teams were able to prevent an assassination attempt on fellow Starship passenger and billionaire RJ Brand. After saving Brand's life, he asked Imra and the other two teens, Garth Rands and Rock Kryn, to form a team which he would fund. Thus, the Legion of Superheroes was born. With Imra adopting the codename Saturn Girl, I feel like I want to skip this song. We're going to skip this song. Here we go. My apologies for the interruption. Some of the songs are a little too tingy. Let's see. Thus, the Legion of Superheroes was born, with Imra adopting the codename Saturn Girl. During her time with the Legion, Imra would begin a long relationship with fellow founder Garth Rands, aka Lightning Lad. She was instrumental in reviving Garth when he was presumed dead, and the pair would eventually marry. Imra gave birth to twins, Graham and Garadan, and later the telepathic sisters Daisy and Dorit. Although she eventually left active duty with the Legion, Saturn Girl is always available to lend a hand to the team in times of great upheaval. It's interesting that she's a character who grows up and ends up having a family and retiring. She's not just dead. After doing the Dr. Fate video where a lot of Dr. Fates just die, it's interesting for her to be retired and just kind of happy. So that's pretty wholesome. I think that's a nice change of pace. Also, Saturn Girl is a character that's in the future, so a lot of her stuff is very sci-fi based. But let's continue exploring her further. I was tripped up a little bit at first, because in her name, it had Rands, and then they were yeah, so she teams up with this guy who has Rands in his last name. And I thought they were brother and sister at first. So then when it's yeah, so she marries Garth, I'm does she marry her brother? But I'm oh, Rands is her last name later on. She was Imra Ardeen, and then later on she gets married and she becomes Imra Rands. Makes sense. But yeah, let's move on from there and pop into her origins. Born among a race of telepaths on the planet of Titan, one of Saturn's moons, Imra Ardeen was always a prodigy, even among her own people. Deciding to use her abilities for good, she applied for membership in the Science Police. However, on a passenger ship to Earth, she used her incredible powers to read the minds of a group of terrorists secretly on board who were planning to assassinate billionaire RJ Brand, who was also on their flight. She thwarted the attempt along with two other teams, Rock Kryn of the planet Brawl and Garth Rands of the planet Wenath. After saving Brand's life, the eccentric mogul asked the trio to form a superhero team that he would fund, and Imra became the Legion of Superheroes' Saturn Girl. She would soon fall in love with fellow Legionnaire Lightning Lad, and the two would begin a very long courtship. When Lightning Lad died, Saturn Girl went to great lengths to bring her boyfriend back to life. creating an elaborate scheme in which she would sacrifice her own life to bring him back. Luckily, the creature called... Hold up, gotta stop this ad. Let me skip the ad. Here we go. So where are we at? The creature called Proti died in her place, allowing Saturn Girl and Lightning Lad to pick up right where they left off. Eventually, after many adventures together with the Legion, Irma and Garth were married, and Legion bylaws were changed so that a married couple was allowed to remain on the team. So before, if you were married, you weren't allowed to be on the team? Also, they're like, luckily, Proti died in her place. So whoever Proti was stood in, so it wasn't a self-sacrifice. She's like, if I sacrifice myself, I can bring Lightning Lad back. And then Proti was like, but I could just die instead and Lightning Lad come back. And I guess they were cool with it because they say luckily. They're not like tragically. Proti's like, no, I can't let you die. I'm gonna die. But whatever. Whoever tells the story tells it through whatever lens they want. During a brief time in which the couple were on a sabbatical from the Legion, Irma gave birth to twins, Graeme and Garradin. But Garradin was kidnapped and taken back in time by the Lord of Apocalypse Darkseid, where he was transformed into the deadly Legion villain Validus, member of the Fatal Five. He was later returned to normal when Imra begged Darkseid to return him to his true form. Imra came back as a full-time Legionnaire in the year 2987 when the villainous Universo enslaved the Earth, and it was Saturn Girl's mental powers which were key in liberating the planet. She became a full-time member of the Legion again, while her husband Lightning Lad stayed home on Winath as a full-time dad. Saturn Girl eventually retired again and began running a plantation, which became very successful. She gave birth to twin girls Daisy and Dorrit. During emergencies, she would continue to aid the Legion. So, there are just a couple weird things about her history so far that I feel weird about. One is Proti sacrificing their life to bring Lightning Lad back to life. Because the way it's described, I imagine when people were reading it, they were like, oh no, Saturn Girl sacrificed her life for Lightning Lad. And then like in the next issue or whatever, they're like, it was actually Proti who sacrificed his life. Saturn Girl is fine. So it sounds like a fake out twist kind of thing. So whatever. And then the next thing that I think is weird is the concept that Darkseid traveled through time to take her child and transform him into a villain. And then Saturn Girl begs him, yo, that is my child, turn him back to normal. And then Darkseid's like, okay. Like, why would begging convince Darkseid to turn the kid back to normal? Like, it's not that Saturn Girl had some elaborate scheme that allowed her to, like, trick Darkseid into turning him back to normal. She begs, and then Darkseid does it? That just doesn't sound like a Darkseid thing. That seems really weird. Her defeating Universo sounds cool. A villain who was powerful enough to enslave the Earth, and Saturn Girl's able to use her mental powers in order to liberate the planet. I also think it's really cool that she's a prodigy among a planet of telepaths, because that means on a planet where everybody has psychic abilities, she's like in the upper echelon. Like, it's not just that everybody where I'm from has these powers, I'm one of the best. Because when you think about it, characters like Superman, sure, he's come from an alien world and he has all these amazing abilities because of his alien heritage, but he's not a prodigy. It's not like Superman is like one of the best Kryptonians. He's just one of the last Kryptonians. You know what I mean? So I do think it's not meant to be taken lightly that she's a prodigy amongst her people. After the events of Zero Hour, a new version of a young Irma Ardeen was introduced. This version of the telepathic teen was actually a science police interrogator, and when she helped save R.J. Brand under similar circumstances as in her previous incarnation, she was asked to join the Legion of Superheroes, which in this reality was a government-sponsored diplomatic peacekeeping force. Unlike before, this Irma was part of a love triangle with her fellow Legion co-founders, Cosmic Boy and Lightning Lad. This version of Saturn Girl and her Legion were later revealed to be part of the parallel Earth 247. So that Saturn Girl isn't even like canon to normal continuity. After 0 Hour, they were like, the Legion of Superhero shit just doesn't even happen in our reality. It doesn't matter. Another Saturn Girl appeared on yet another parallel Earth, Earth Prime. This version of Irma Ardeen was actually mute, as her race of Titanians were so advanced in their mental abilities that they didn't speak vocally. To talk to her teammates, she always used telepathic communication. Earth Prime's Irma has a hard time opening up to fellow members on the team, except with her beloved Lightning Lad. They didn't really have much to say about the Earth 247 Saturn Girl. They were like, she was in a love triangle with Lightning Lad and Cosmic Boy. And I was like, well, she married Lightning Lad in the previous continuity. In this love triangle one, did she like get with Cosmic Boy? They're like, it doesn't matter. Earth Prime Saturn Girl can't talk. That's the new focus. So, I think the idea of her being so telepathically minded that she like that her whole species doesn't speak, I guess makes sense. Like that's like an interesting concept because it's like, why would you need to if you can speak telepathically? So I guess that's like a cool idea. After the events of Infinite Crisis, it was revealed that the original Legion still exists in the multiverse. Imra was a member once more and helped Superman when he traveled to the future to reunite with his childhood friends when the xenophobic Earthman threatened the planet. During the epic known as Final Crisis Legion of Three Worlds, it was Irma's telepathy which united 3 different legions from across the multiverse to join in battle against the monstrous villain, the Time Trapper. She has appeared recently in the post-rebirth reality as a patient in Arkham Asylum in the 21st century. So it matters that they started bringing up all these other Earths. They're like, there's normal continuity Legion of Superheroes, there's Earth Prime Legion of Superheroes, and there's Earth 247 Legion of Superheroes. And during Final Crisis, all 3 of the legions team up to fight one big bad villain. That actually is kind of interesting, because it's essentially saying that, like, because when it said after the events of 0 Hour, a new version of the Legion was introduced, I thought they were saying that the old Legion just didn't exist. That, like, it wasn't canon. They're like, all of the Legions are canon, all of them still happened, and they all exist in the multiverse, and then they're able to get together and unite to fight against, like, a bigger common enemy. That's kind of cool, because that means that every Legion of Superhero story matters, because they all happen, and they all exist, and they're not being, like, undone by continuity. So that's kind of cool. I dig that. Powers and abilities. Saturn Girl is a telepathic prodigy, seen as exceptional even among her race of telepathic beings who reside on Titan. Saturn Girl has an in-depth knowledge of the humanoid brain and each of its specific functions. She has the power to read the minds of others and sometimes can pick up stray thoughts accidentally, as her mind is so powerful. She can place thoughts in the minds of others and create a so-called telepathic cloak, which she can use to mask herself from her enemies, including other telepaths. Her powers of mind control are extensive, and she has a psionic blast as well as the power to create illusions. Some of the limitations of her powers might actually be self-imposed. One of her teachers, Dr. Avon, placed psychic blocks on her mind to limit her vast ability. As a member of the Legion, she has access to a Legion flight ring, which allows her the ability to fly. So, her inception ability, I think, is really cool. Like, her ability to make people think other thoughts. I really like the fact that she can create illusions. That's pretty dope. That's always, like, a really solid ability. I think her psionic blast is cool because it gives her, like, a more physical attack if she's not going to be, like, invading the minds of others all the time. The concept of her psychic blocks being like self-imposed is also an interesting feature, because I'm curious what it's like if she fully lets loose. Like if it's like, I'm removing all my psychic blockers, it's time to go beyond. Like, is she like really like released all her power or something? I wonder how devastating it would be. To be honest, it's crazy that she's on a team, because she just seems uber powerful on her own. If she can make other people think like thoughts and make them think that they thought those thoughts themselves, and she can mask herself from people like, oh, you don't know I'm here, and I'm manipulating your thoughts, and I can create illusions. She could kind of just manipulate people into believing they're in a fantasy world, or into thinking that she's like their ally, or just control them. She could just puppet everybody around her. It would be interesting to see a storyline where it's like, Lightning Lad never loved her. She was controlling Lightning Lad the whole time. Or maybe Lightning Lad did actually love her, but she doesn't know, because she's like, but what if I've been puppeting him because I can subconsciously just put thoughts in other people's minds without trying? Because they mentioned that she can catch like the stray thoughts of other people. Like she can she can pick up stray thoughts accidentally because her mind's so powerful. What if she could place thoughts in the minds of others accidentally because her mind's so powerful? Like, it would be the same kind of thing. So it's like, oh, I'm infatuated with Lightning Lad, and because I love him so much, or I'm so like caught up with him, I'm like shaping him with my mind accidentally. I don't mean to do that, but I am doing that, and it's like causing him to love me. I think that would actually be like a really cool concept. Maybe that story already exists. If it does, we're about to find it in essential storylines in history. But like I was saying before, she seems like she could just be her own character. Like, she's on a team with a whole bunch of other people. We don't need those. She's like a one-person army. I imagine she especially is if she removes her psychic blockers. Like, she's a prodigy and like a powerful telepath on her own planet, and I'm imagining that's the case with the blockers. So without the blockers, she's probably like next level, like way more powerful. The Legion of Superheroes Adventure Comics number 247, 1958. In the Legion's first ever appearance, Saturn Girl, along with her fellow Legion founders, Cosmic Boy and Lightning Lad, go back in time to the 20th century Smallville to recruit their inspiration, Superboy. Although they at first trick him into thinking he did not make the cut, they reveal by the end of the story that it was all a test and Superboy made it in after all. The Stolen Superpowers Adventure Comics number 304, 1963. In this story, Saturn Girl is elected Legion leader and quickly proves to be cruel and strict. She grounds members of the team and uses a device to steal their powers. It all turns out to be a scheme to sacrifice herself in her teammates' place when she learned that Zaryan, the Conqueror, was predicted to kill a member of the Legion. But Lightning Lad learns the truth and sacrifices himself in her place. That is wild, because we already know that Saturn Girl is later going to try to sacrifice herself to bring back Lightning Lad, but in reality, Prody is going to be the one to sacrifice himself, which will allow Lightning Lad to come back to life. Which means it's a way more complicated story than we thought, because Saturn Girl tricks the Legion so that she'll die, sacrificing her place to protect the rest of the Legion. But she fails, and Lightning Lad jumps in and takes the L for her. So it seems like she has a running thing, like a running plot line, that'll be like, she's trying to sacrifice herself in order to prevent somebody else from dying or to bring somebody else back. And then someone will be like, psych, I'm sacrificing myself instead. Because that's happened twice for her already. And it's always another member of the Legion who does it. By the way, didn't it just say that Zaryan the Conqueror was predicted? How did she learn that? How did she learn that a Conqueror was predicted to do that thing? For a minute, I was like, can she see the future? And it's like, it doesn't really say how she learned that. Whatever. Let's see. So I'm going to read this panel real quick, because it looks like she's demonstrating some powers. My trick worked, haha. Willing myself to colossal size, I can triplicate myself, exert supermagnetic cosmic power, shine with the brilliance of the sun, launch lightning bolts, etc. I can duplicate the powers of all the Legionnaires except Superboy and Supergirl, who are in different time eras. So, Saturn Girl was able to make a device. No, it says she uses a device to steal their powers. They just have shit like that? They just have powers that let you steal all the other Legionnaires' abilities? I imagine that device is really relevant, right? Because they're just showing her using everybody else's powers. At first, I thought she was just using her psionic blast, like her normal psionic blast. No, that's her stealing Lightning Lad's abilities. I want to learn more about this device. That's like a really crazy concept. The Millennium Massacre. All new Collector's Edition Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes number 55, 1978. Saturn Girl and Lightning Lad become the first Legion members to get married in the special oversized issue. Superboy arrives in the future to celebrate the nuptials, only to find the future altered thanks to the machinations of the Time Trapper. Once he's defeated, Saturn Girl and Lightning Lad leave the team, although their absence from the team was relatively brief. Interesting. So the Time Trapper appears prior to the like team up of all three legions, final hour or whatever. So Time Trapper's just a villain for the Legion in general. He didn't just appear that one time. Cool. Close Encounters Legionnaires number 0, 1994. In the post-Zero Hour reality, Irma Ardeen is reintroduced as an accomplished science police interrogator who saves the life of billionaire R.J. Brand, leading him to recruit her to become a founding member of his new project, the Legion of Superheroes. Although she was unsure of this new Legion at first, she quickly became a valuable member. The Button, Batman number 21, 2017. A woman with telepathic powers who seems to be Irma Ardeen appears in the 21st century as an inmate of Arkham Asylum, where her powers have made her seemingly mentally unstable to the locals. How she arrived in the past and her true intentions are a mystery that remain to be solved. I think that's been resolved already, the Saturn Girl stuff, so I think this is a little bit behind. But after the events of Doomsday Clock, the Legion of Superheroes are back into normal continuity. So, I'm not sure what they did about the older Saturn Girl thing or not. I don't know if she's still in Arkham or if she got out of Arkham or what. But yeah. Also, there's a new Legion of Superheroes book. Excuse me, and I'm not sure if they covered that new Legion of Superheroes book in this at all. But hey, I mean, it sounds like we got a somewhat up-to-date look at Saturn Girl. Like, it got us to the current era of comics, but maybe just not the most recent iteration of Saturn Girl specifically. Team affiliations, she's a member of the Legion of Superheroes, and in some instances, the Science Police. They list it under affiliations, but not all versions of her are members of the Science Police. Appearances in other media. In animation, she appeared in Lego DC Comics Superheroes Justice League Cosmic Clash, and she appeared in Justice League vs. the Fatal Five. Oh, okay. I got confused for a second, because I was like, there's a Legion of Superheroes show. Those were her film animated appearances. My bad. On television, she has appeared in live action in Smallville and Supergirl. Animated television, she appeared in Superman the Animated Series and in Justice League Unlimited, and she's a main character in the animated series Legion of Superheroes. So, that's all the information we got on Saturn Girl. What do you guys think? What superhero should I do next? Definitely let me know in the comment section below. Saturn Girl seems pretty cool. I do really like the concept of like, all the Saturn Girls are canon throughout all these different universes, and they can team up, and she can telepathically call the legions from the other universes to come in and help. I think that's a really cool idea. I think her powers are really overpowered. It seems like she could probably beat a few of the people we've already talked about on the channel. If you guys haven't checked out my video, These Superheroes Do Not Exist, I highly recommend that you do. It's a project that John Mason and I are working on, and I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on it. Anyways, thank you all for tuning in. If you guys like this video, make sure to smash that like button, favorite, comment, subscribe, and ding, 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 ring the notification bell to be notified whenever we do these videos. In charge for your boy, Jeff, like one only, logging out. Peace, chicka ga. Hey. Hey, 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 yeah.